everyone. I'm Sylvia Shulkin, Chair of the Steering Committee of the League of Women Voters of Falmouth. We're very happy to see you. Thank you for coming tonight to the League's Candidates Night. This program is presented in collaboration with FCTV, Channel 13, our community television station. Thanks to FCTV's dedicated staff and volunteers, you'll have a chance to hear the candidates' views both this evening and in rebroadcast up to 24 hours before the election. So you have lots of time to change your mind. You can find FCTV's schedule for rebroadcasting this program in the Falmouth Enterprise. The League is a nonpartisan political organization, which is certainly a rarity in these polarized times. We're nonpartisan because we never support a candidate or a political party. We're political because we do take positions on public policy issues based on our study of independently verified facts. By the way, League membership is open to men as well as women, so don't be shy. You can learn more about the League by picking up our brochures on a table in the foyer just outside this room, or by visiting us on Facebook or online at www.lwvf.org. The League of Women Voters encourages informed participation in government. Casting an informed vote is one way all of us can participate in government. Candidates Night provides an opportunity for all candidates for all contested offices to inform the voting public of their views in an environment of mutual respect. And that's respect that goes between the candidates and the audience, and from the audience to all the candidates. The League is very grateful for the time and energy, the thoughtfulness and civility that candidates bring to this event. Our gratitude to Linda Collins, the Falmouth Public Library's director, and to Peter Cook, head of the library's Information Technology Department, for their gracious assistance and advice. And a shout out to Engage Falmouth for publicizing this Candidates Night on its website, and for also publicizing the facts about how you get to vote, who's eligible, where you cast your ballot. And of course, special recognition to our Voter Service Chair, Carol McKeon, and her Voter Service Committee, Alice Carey, Marcia Easterling, Judy Fenwick, Olive Ann Hobby, Misty Niemeyer, Jenny Putnam, Judy Stetson, Sylvia Shulkin, and Olivia White. They're the ones who put together this event, coming up with the format, ironing out all the wrinkles, and putting all the many moving pieces together. Finally, a tribute to all our candidates for taking the time and effort to run for public office. Our moderator tonight is Mindy Todd, WCAI's award-winning radio journalist. We thank her for volunteering her services tonight to the League and to the whole community. And this program will feature questions from the League of Women Voters itself, from people in the community who couldn't make it here tonight but sent us their questions, and from all of you who filled out cards. Please remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. So hope to see you at the polls on May 21st. Now we are going to have Mindy. I better take that off.
Changing of the guard here. Thank you. Okay, welcome. Good to see everybody here this evening. We are going to start this evening with the uncontested candidates for offices of Housing Authority, School Committee, and Library Trustee. We're going to invite them up to the microphone. They're going to give a brief statement about their candidacy, and we're going to start with a candidate for Housing Authority, Stephen Patton. So if you want to come up to the microphone. Yeah, sure. Oh, right here. That one right there.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name's Steve Patton. I moved to Falmouth about 6 years ago from Worcester. I've owned a home here for 20 years, and I'm active in the community. I'm currently on the Conservation Commission and the Community Preservation Committee, and I'm an elected member of the Democratic Town Committee. My interest in the Housing Authority comes from my career. I was an executive director of Community Development Corporation in Worcester, where we built and managed about 150 healthcare house units within the community. When you look at the Housing Authority, they have nearly 800 units. But the systems are different. I believe my reputation is that I prepare for meetings. I'm a constant learner, and I would enjoy the opportunity to serve you on the Falmouth Housing Authority.
Thank
I
you.
do have a Conservation Commission meeting tonight, so I'll be leaving. But thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for stopping in to see us. Next, we have the candidates for library trustee. Up first is Catherine Elder. Catherine, if you want to come up to the microphone. Is she not here? Not here, okay. Then next, Sylvia Shulkin. Sylvia.
If I look familiar, you're not seeing things. I'm Sylvia Shulkin from North Falmouth. I've lived there year-round for 19 years, and before then, my husband and I paid many trips to Falmouth for many beautiful vacations. I'm running uncontested for re-election, but I don't take your vote for granted. There are a lot of issues and opportunities that are going to be before the library trustees over the coming 3 years, and I hope that you'll find I have the experience to merit your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Alai.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Alai, and I have been the observer to the board, to the Library Board of Trustees for the League of Women Voters for the past almost 2 years, and I really value the work that the board does, and I'd like to be a part of that work. Thank you.
Thank you. And the candidates for school committee, Lisa Hart.
Sorry, I'm a little short. My name is Lisa Hart, and I'm excited to be a part of the school committee for the next 3 years. I have lived in Falmouth for 16 years. I do have 2 children that are in the Falmouth Public Schools. Excuse me. My oldest son, Chatham, goes to Lawrence School. He is 14, and my youngest boy, Ryder, is 11, and he goes to Morse Pond. Being a part of their educational development has been paramount to me, obviously, since they first started school. And I was actively involved in the classroom and then subsequently with the VIPS organization as well as PTO. My desire to be a part of the school committee simply comes from speaking with like-minded parents who are driving to make positive and impactful changes with within the school district itself. And I very much look forward to participating with this committee, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Keefe.
Hi, I'm Melissa Keefe. I am running for re-election for school committee. My first go-around was for a one-year term. That was 4 years ago, and then I ran for a full 3-year term 3 years ago. I've lived in Falmouth since I was 4, except for college, and then a little traveling thereafter. I feel like I believe in Falmouth Public Schools. I feel as though we are doing good work on the committee and that my personal work isn't done, and I am very proud of the work that we have done and the work that I look forward to doing and completing. I, too, have 2 children in Falmouth Public Schools. They both go to East. I have Molly, who's a 4th grader, and Joey, who's a 3rd grader. I am also a town meeting member for Precinct 4. I'm the co-president of the PTO at East, among other things. I'm very involved. I love our town. I joke that my blood runs maroon, but I think it just might. Thank you. I appreciate your vote. Thanks very much.
Okay, next we're going to hear candidates for town meeting, and you're going to, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that, I don't have the list. Oh, come on up, I'm sorry, not on my list.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters for establishing this night. I think it's great for the community. It's great for the candidates. Bill Ryder. I'm a retired educator from Pennsylvania. I will be embarking on my second 3-year term for the school committee and absolutely enjoy what I've done and hopefully can continue to do. The neat thing about a school committee is you deal with a lot of different things. Obviously, you deal with policy, you deal with budget, which I think in this town has been great to us as a school committee, and I like the fact that we deal very closely with the community on the budgetary concepts. The other thing is the superintendent. This is now the second superintendent we've had in 3 years. And I look forward to working with this superintendent. I think she's done a great job the first year, and that's part of what we do as a school committee. We hire, and we evaluate, and we support. So I've enjoyed the first 3 years. I'm looking forward to the next 3 years. There's a passion about kids that I have. There's a passion about education that I have. I love what I do. And the last thing, and I think it's one of the most important things, and I'm going to ask you to vote. And I'm going to ask you to ask your friends to vote. And I'm going to ask you that people who've never voted for a long time to vote again, because I think it's so important. It is a civic responsibility, and not enough people take advantage of the voting booth. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we will have the candidates for town meeting who are just going to come up basically and introduce themselves. So you want to come up to the microphone if you're running for town meeting.
I'm Peter Franklin. I've been living in Falmouth for about 10 years now, and I'm running for town meeting candidate. I'm a town meeting candidate for Precinct 5, and I've been in Falmouth working in volunteer organizations. I was on the board of Arts Falmouth. I was on the board of the Falmouth Village Association. I volunteer at the Service Center, and I've been the executive director of Highfield Hall for 4 years. And I'm looking forward to being on town meeting to see if I can bring some business acumen to the town meeting. Thank you for your vote.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lilia Franton. I'm running for Precinct 5 town meeting member. My husband, Herb Edwards, and I have lived at on Old Main Road, which is in the historic district of Old North Falmouth Village, for about 17 years. And over that time, I've come to really know and love my wonderful community. It's a small but truly welcoming place, from the library and its amazing staff to its parks, beaches, schools, and churches that make it such a nice place to live. As a member of the North Falmouth Village Association, I got to know such outstanding and giving neighbors. I was recording secretary for a year, and I'm still on the garden committee, but less active than I wanted to be when I became involved with Falmouth peace groups and others working to shut Pilgrim Nuclear Power Plant, which I am happy to say will be closing in June. Of course, the cleanup will take many more years and much oversight, but at least it will begin. Of late, I've tried to re-engage with the Village Association, honored to help those that do so much unheralded good work, from giving school scholarships to our kids to cleanup days and social events that bring young and old together to build a real sense of community and caring. I'm running to try and help in that work. In my previous life, by the way, I was a teacher. I was a professor of art and art history at a New Jersey community college. I wanted to run for Precinct 5 representative to town meeting to hopefully bring more opportunity for input and information from the people that I'd serve. I asked people when I was gathering signatures for the ballot if they might favor more precinct meetings, and each agreed. So I'd propose more meetings beyond the 2 that we always hold with Precinct 6 right before town meeting, when there really is little public discussion of opinions about the agenda items and how they would like their representatives to vote. So in closing, as a Precinct 5 representative, I'd like to use those additional meetings to foster an even deeper sense of connection, community, and caring in our village, in our precinct, and in our town of Falmouth. I hope you'll vote for me, and I'll try my best to make that happen. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sherry White in Precinct 8. There are 3 of us running for one open 2-year term, so I'll be voting for Lynn Rhodes, and I'd ask you to do the same. Thank you.
I'm Megan Hanwalt. I'm also in Precinct 8, and I am also running for a 2-year term, but please vote for Lynn Rhodes. We want her to be our representative.
John Nolan, Precinct 1. My wife and I bought a house in Falmouth 16 years ago, finally decided to move here 3 years ago. We just love this town, and I want to be a participant. Unfortunately, for about 5 or 6 years, we commuted back and forth between here and Illinois, and I never had a chance to get involved. And I would appreciate your vote so I can get involved. Thank you.
I'm Peter Hargraves, Precinct 9, East Falmouth. My wife and I have lived here 10 years, and we love the community and have become involved in a variety of things. And I myself have volunteered at the Service Center and have been part of town meeting and pleased to be part of the evolution in the way the town meeting is run and interacts with the leadership of the town over the last 8 years. Most recently, a group of us started a Falmouth litter reduction team, and you'll be hearing more about us, but I think you're going to like what we're doing. And I would appreciate anyone from Precinct 9 who's listening to vote, and to vote for me, if you're so inclined.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Melissa Romano, running for Precinct 7, and I want to run to represent my neighbors in my community and on the issues that are important to them and their children and their parents. I have 6 children of my own and a mom in town, so I know that there's a lot of important issues that come up, and I'd like to represent all of you in that. So vote for me, please.
Hello, my name is Virginia Land McGuire. Excuse me, I'm running in Precinct 1 for town meeting member. In my day job, I am an associate dean and faculty captain with Sea Education Association. I have been Falmouth-based since 1993 and a homeowner here for the last 14 or 15 years. I have 2 kids in the Falmouth schools. I'm interested in being a town meeting primarily because of them, and also because my husband is on the Bikeways Committee, and honestly, he comes home from Bikeways Committees a little bit bruised, but really excited to be involved in the town. And I want to be a part of that as well. So I'd appreciate your vote from Precinct 1.
Hello, I'm Mick Mikulajczyk, Richard Mikulajczyk. I go by Mick, and I'm in Precinct 7. I'm a retired naval supply officer. I grew up in Webster, Massachusetts, Lake Chagagog, Manchagog, Chabunagogmog. So I also retired with the Department of Defense with Military Sealift Command. I had 6 ships. You probably know one of them, the Comfort. It was the hospital ship. I managed budget there for $220 million. So I know a little bit about funding. I also work right now as an adjunct professor at 4 Cs. I teach Excel, accounting, and business there, and I also tutored my students there as well. I want to give back to the community, and this is the best way, I think, to start. So thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Shannon Sylvester. I have lived here my whole life, almost 35 years, but we won't discuss that. I am running for a Precinct 2 town meeting member. I am a mom of 4 children in the school system. I have done 2.5 years with behavioral analysis and currently almost finished my bachelor's for criminal justice. I am really wanting to get more involved and get my generation more involved in the voting system, and really hearing out what they think is going to be best for the town long term. So, Shannon, have a good day.
Deborah Winograd, running for re-election in Precinct 9. I'm a volunteer with Friends of the Library and retired from the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
I'm Sunshine Stewart. I moved here from San Francisco 8 years ago. I have been married here, had my children here, built our home here. I am running for town meeting precinct 7, and I have 2 kids in East. Hunter is 7, Presley is 6, and I've been involved on the executive committee for the West Falmouth Preschool, currently with the East Falmouth PTO, VIPS, Falmouth Service Center, and the Falmouth Education Foundation. Thank you all.
Hi, I'm Mark Finneran, if you don't know it. I'm running for my fourth go-around at town meeting. I've introduced many articles, passed some. The last town meeting, I passed an article that allowed the people in the sewer service area to participate in the accessory apartment bylaw. And if you elect me again, I'll try to do more for you. Thank you very much.
Okay, we get everybody? Yeah, okay. If we can have the candidates for planning committee come on up and take your seats, and while you're taking your seat, I'll explain the format. The questions have been put together by the League of Women Voters Voter Service Committee. We'll have up to 2 minutes for answers to the questions, and our timekeepers are right there in the front row. You see them there. So when they hold up your sign, please don't make me say, time. We want to make sure everybody has the equal amount of time for this. We will not have any opening statements, but we will have a 2-minute closing statement after we get through all of the questions. And I think that is it. So, and we'll also switch the order on who answers first, obviously, so that everybody gets a turn to be first or last. And candidates are Paul Dreyer, Michael Halen, and Patricia Clifford. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. We will start, Paul, with you. What particular expertise, experience, or interest do you bring to the office of planning board member?
I was elected to planning board 2 times before, so this would be my 3rd term.
1 minute, I'm sorry, Paul. Mindy, which of these microphones is for the room and which one is for
I don't know,
cable?
I
Check,
don't know
1,
the
2.
answer to
So
that.
this is the
Maybe-
room mic, Paul, and then this one is going to the
This
TV
one's on.
truck. That one's going to the TV truck for live feed.
Okay. There you go. Okay, so I guess you want to be closer to that. Okay, we can start again.
Time's up, Paul.
Next, do you
Hi, my name is Paul Dreyer. I'm running for the 3rd term as planning board representative. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the Commonwealth and a board-certified environmental engineer. I have a lot of experience on consulting businesses, and I'd like to bring that to the planning board and continue working with the planning board.
Thank you, Michael.
My name is Michael Halen, and I'm running for the planning board. I've never won, but I'm running for my 3rd straight time. And my expertise, I run a nonprofit public TV station. I mentor high school children. I have filmed, like FCTV has filmed government meetings now for 12 years. So I know the ins and outs of planning boards, selectmen, conservation, et cetera. My expertise that I would bring to the board is the passion to do what the young families in this town want us to do and need us to do. This past summer, there was an issue with a dual diagnosis rehab center next to a middle school, and it wasn't the elected officials in town that helped the children, it was all of the parents in town that helped the children. And I want to thank all the parents who this year are running for town meeting, getting more involved. And I hope to continue with that passion. Thank you.
Thank you. Tricia.
My name is Pat Kerfoot. Particular expertise. 18 years on the planning board, I think, is probably going to tell you most of what I need to tell you. I've had the experiences of that everything in those 18 years has brought about. Chairman for 5 years, presenting to the town meeting when issues come up. And in my former work life, from which I've been retired for quite a number of years, I helped to manage my husband's company, which is environmentally concerned, so I bring those concerns to the planning board as well. We had quite a number of issues that have been going on over the years. The devising of our local comprehensive plan, I worked on that since 2009 through many tries to bring it about to fruition, which have happened. So it's just mostly the experience of working through the planning board and understanding the bylaws. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mike Hill, we start with you this time. What changes should be made to the town's long-range plan to make it a better roadmap for both planners and citizens?
So right now, if everyone is not aware of the local comprehension plan that she just discussed, part of the plan says that we are going to place all homes, cluster homes, in certain areas of town, and we're going to protect other areas of town. So if anyone lives in an area of town where there's sewering, where there are, businesses, they're going to put cluster homes in your area, and they were going to not put them in other parts of town. So for instance, and let me know my time's up over here, thank you. Helmuth Circle is a project off Alma Road. They put sewers down the heights in Mara Vista to protect Little Pond. And once they did that, the next thing they did is starting to put 28 houses on 4 acres. That's 7 acres, but 4 buildable. That's a lot of houses in that area, and that is not helping with Little Pond. It's not environmentally savvy. And also, they're going to have to mow down all that land. There's turtles living in there, salamanders. So to help the environment, the sewers that were supposed to help the environment are going to cause cluster housing in certain parts of town, while others are totally untouched.
Patricia, same question.
Okay. This is our local comprehensive plan. That is the fruit of what started with me in 2009. But in fact, our first version of it was in 1998 and has gone through many revisions since then. For me, this question is difficult to answer because the plan, as it is, was written with the most flexibility as possible. At any time, the introduction and the action items may be amended, changed, or deleted. Only the goals and policies need to be brought before town meeting to be changed. And those were written to be very general to give guidance into a 50-year future. So about 30 years ago, the Cape Cod Commission devised requirements for local comprehensive plans for the Cape. These are our master plans. What we currently have assigns responsibility for accomplishment of action items, as well as timeframes for completion or indication that these items will continue to be applicable into an indefinite future. The action items as they are in here are currently being worked on, completed, and replaced with additional tasks. The planning board has the responsibility for the creation of the local comprehensive plan given to us by the selectmen, and so in fact is responsible for the roadmap for the planners. So that's why this difficult question for me. Right now, Falmouth and all of the Cape towns with local comprehensive plans are in a limbo state. The commission has been reviewing its requirements and rewriting them. The release of the new format is anticipated to be sometime in June. At that time, the planning board and its local comprehensive plan committee will review the requirements and revise the LCP if and where necessary. Originally, we sought comments from the public, town employees, boards, and committees to help create the LCP, and we will do so again.
Thank you. Paul?
The Board of Selectmen have a 5-year plan, a short-term plan, and the purpose of the Planning Board is to make a recommendation on long-term growth of the plan. Now, the comprehensive plan that we've been talking about have 6 elements that have been vetted over a long period of time. And as mentioned, the Cape Cod Commission is considering some new policy statements that we'll have to consider in the next couple of weeks, which may result in a review of the local comprehensive plan. The Coastal Resiliency Action Committee could be producing additional items, which would affect the one item in the local comprehensive plan called coastal resiliency. So it's going to be an active period to find out how we pull all this together and begin a series of public hearings to get input from everyone to make it a more valuable document for the long term.
Thank you. Patricia, we start with you this time. What changes to the present zoning bylaws do you recommend in order to promote sustainable long-term growth of the town?
It's interesting because we're working on the recodification of the bylaw. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to do 18 years ago, and it's finally happening. Some of what we're doing is working towards those ends by bringing it up to date. But sustainable growth, we're going to have to look, and this will be new bylaws, we're going to have to look at affordable housing and make it happen. We talk about it, we talk a good game, but we haven't done very much about it. We're going to have to up the game for economic outreach to try to bring good businesses here, clean businesses here. That will possibly require rezoning. This is what we can do.
Paul?
Well, one of the things the planning board is looking at is the Davis Straits reset with the Cape Cod Commission. And that involves a series of projects which would be multi-use, using better conditions for development, and increasing density in those areas where it's warranted. For example, there's a sewer in an area that's warranted to consideration. We're also looking at the accessory bylaw. Where appropriate, we can work with the town on that as well. But it's been a very long process over 2 years, and a lot of public hearings. There's a lot of controversy over it, both size of the land and other issues. But it's a very important element that's going to increase housing in the town.
Michael?
As Mr. Dreyer just said, they're looking at building multi-use buildings in certain areas of town. That means that if you live on 28, East Falmouth, T-Ticket, Hatchville, those are zoned to build these units, Stop and Shop to Walmart, all the way down to T-Ticket, where other parts of town won't have to do this. And that's something that I like to address if elected. I feel like we're in a Dickens novel, A Tale of Two Cities, where, half of the town is bearing the brunt for the other half of the town. And this also goes with business zoning bylaws. Right now, we don't have any zoning bylaws regarding medical facilities that hand out drugs or drug paraphernalia. And I brought this up the last town meeting, and it was shot down. There's also no regulations on sober homes. And a city in California just passed regulations that no more than 6 persons in a unit. And what that does is that creates a better environment for the people in those units, and it creates a better environment for the neighborhoods where those units are being placed. And these are things that the planning board has had years to look into, and they have not. And that is one thing that I would like to address.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to questions from the audience, and this time, Paul, we start with you. As a member of the planning board, what will you do to bring about the use of renewable energy on Falmouth Public School properties and other town properties?
Well, as a licensed environmental engineer, I'm very much aware of the need for renewable energy and alternate energy sources. There's not a lot that the planning board can do because it's really a building function. And one of the things the planning board could do was reconsider the stretch code, which has been presented to town meeting, I think, on 3 different occasions. Each time it was presented by the Board of Selectmen, and it was rejected by town meeting members. Time has come where it's getting closer and closer to what people are actually doing. So I think it would be helpful to encourage public hearings on the stretch code and support the building commissioner, including that into the building code. I think that would be an important element to consider for improved efficiency, not only in town buildings, but public buildings as well, private buildings as well.
Michael?
Yeah, I live in West Falmouth. I have solar panels. I got them 3 months after we bought our house, and I love them. We haven't paid an electricity bill for years. It's good for the environment, and I think that town buildings and schools should also be looking to solar panels. The one thing I am concerned with is that last year, a year and a half ago roughly, Kenyon's Marketplace put up solar panels, a parking structure, and the planning board did not like that, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, either of you, but they tried to stop freestanding solar panels. So, freestanding solar panel arrays. So, my goal in the planning board would be to have more businesses, more solar panel structures, that kind of stuff. It's good for the environment, it's good for the economy. Thanks.
Actually, I disagree. We did not try to stop those freestanding solar panels. We actually are trying to encourage that. We have a whole new zone of 300 and some odd acres that will accept solar panels. As far as the schools and other public buildings, that is going to be a determination of the town when they do their buildings. Just recently in town meeting, an addition was approved to our site plan review, and that is to encourage, when we do the site plan review, solar and other alternative energy sources. That could even be just saying, why don't you just change the direction of the building a little bit to increase passive heat? So these are the kinds of things we can do. But as far as the town buildings go, that's the town.
Michael, we start with you. Yeah, real quickly. Yeah.
The planning board never was presented the Kenya Market situation. That was approved by the building commissioner. We had no role in that. One member of the planning board raised issues because it's a structure and it should be considered as a structure. And the building department decided it was not, and it was approved, but it never came before the planning board. The planning board is not opposed to solar panels in any stretch of way.
I know this is getting way off, but it was discussed at the planning board meeting that a planning board member, it was discussed to try to stop temporarily freestanding solar panels. And that is what I, from the minutes of the meeting, from watching on TV, from the newspaper, that occurred. At the planning board meeting, they discussed trying to stop temporarily solar panels from being built.
You want to have a little extra time, Patricia, since I gave it to them?
What we wanted to do was to simply look at how they're sited. And if that's a temporary stoppage of it, I guess, because it was claimed that we could do absolutely nothing, no controls on solar in any way. That is incorrect. We can do certain reasonable controls as to where they are placed, how they are sited. And we wanted to take a look at that. And that's all. We're not downing them at all. We're encouraging solar.
Thank you. Michael, we start with you this time. Climate change and coastal resiliency are major factors that will impact long-term growth in Falmouth. What specific actions do you think the town should take now to address these issues?
I said this last year, I'm going to say it again, coastal breakwaters. I don't know if you're all familiar with this, but it's floating structures that you put out into the ocean, roughly where the buoys are. It's natural vegetation. They have them in San Francisco. I think Boston has planned them. So when the waves come, before they hit the beach, they hit the breakwaters. The waves disperse, and it stops erosion. Also, in some places, they have walkways. So the vegetation, you can have a little walkway for residents, tourists. It doesn't harm the environment. It actually helps the environment. I've talked to several environmental police officers all over the state about this. It's a great idea. And I don't know why we're not doing this right now. You can tow them, you can set them, you can move them. It's a great way to stop the erosion.
Patricia?
That is an element in the local comprehensive plan, and there is quite a bit of detail in it. When we first started talking about land use, we were totally stymied how we go about anything with this, because it all seemed to go back to how we handle increased heights of water and more powerful storms and more storms, sea level rise, loss of shoreline due to all of this. So the local comprehensive plan called out 8 action items in the coastal resiliency element and assigns responsibility to meet those challenges. This is going to be very difficult. We're going to have to decide where development can no longer be permitted because of vulnerability and rezone accordingly. Can we as a community make investments that will protect already existing vulnerable development, such as Michael was talking about? Is it possible, even if we have the will to do so? Can we harden the infrastructure against coastal storm destruction? If not, what is the government's responsibility to replace it, realizing it'll be destroyed again? Do we restore and enlarge wetlands, marshes, beaches, and dunes to provide a natural shock absorber? That seems to be the low-hanging fruit, really, at this point. And it's already being done to some extent. Any one of these potential solutions will most likely be financially painful to some private individuals, some coastal businesses, but also to the community as a whole. The solutions, when there are some reasonable ones, will be expensive. Where will the money come from? The Board of Selectmen established a coastal resiliency working group. They're working very hard at this. They're knowledgeable people. They are also engaging coastal experts who will delineate our vulnerabilities, and their report will prioritize actions. Please hear this well. Falmouth must listen to and heed their recommendations.
Thank you. Paul?
Well, the Coastal Resiliency Committee is called the Coastal Resiliency Action Committee, and that was set by the Board of Selectmen to come up with positive recommendations. And as the planning board representative to that committee, I've been sitting on all those meetings for the last year, and later this year, we're going to have a report on the hydrodynamic modeling of the entire coast, both coasts, on the vulnerable areas of the town that we need to address. Secondly, we've submitted an application for a project along the south coast to look at what we might be able to do along Surf Drive area. And next week, we'll be submitting another application along the west coast to coastal zone management to see if we can look at the sand management in that area and what we might be able to do, the sources and what we can do in that area. So there's a lot of activity going on. But one of the concerns is, once we come up with these kinds of recommendations, would be to the planning board and others to try to implement these activities in a timely fashion. So it's an important element. It's got a lot of priority here in town. And I will tell you, the committee is working extremely hard trying to come up with something that makes sense for the town.
Thank you. I have a little cough thing going, sorry.
Vin, do you want a water?
I have some. Just 1 second, I'm gonna cough. Okay. Patricia.
Save time for the selectmen.
Yeah, I know, I gotta save my voice. Many citizens are concerned about the increasing size of houses, the mega mansions, and their impact on our community. What are your views on the issue? And if elected, how would you use your leadership position to address citizen concerns?
Well, I hate the mansionization. You have to know that, because what it's doing is taking away the smaller, affordable houses. Because people with money come in, they buy the smaller houses, knock them down, mansionize them. I think it's a terrible thing. What can we do as a planning board? Not much. We've tried to do, increase the setbacks from sidelines, didn't work, was voted down. You can control the height, and we do, to 35 feet, 2.5 stories. To some degree, that helps control the size, but you're dealing with lot size too. And you have to keep a certain amount free and unbuilt upon, and that's all we can do with zoning. So you cannot tell an individual, you can't. When we go towards coastal, that's what I was bringing up earlier, and Paul is talking about too, as to what the recommendations may be. We may not be able to allow some of these buildings there, but that has nothing to do with size. It would have to do with coastal vulnerability. So I don't see any answer as to size that the planning board can actually control.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we're limited in what we can do in this area. If the Coastal Resiliency Action Committee indicates certain areas that should not be built upon, that's a long process. It's land taking, it's expensive, it's a number of things. But there are some ways of doing that with transfer of development rights and things of that sort that need to be developed. But it's a very long process. It takes a long time, and it's going to be very painful for a lot of people as well. But we're thinking about how we might go forward with this that's equitable and fair to everyone, which I think is the important element.
I'd have to review the zoning bylaws and what we can do, whether setback or side yard. But one of the other things that we say with these mega mansions, during the summertime, when you have 10, 15, 20 people in there, what's that doing to the septic system if it's on septic? And we've been a lot of discussion in West Falmouth about new septic systems to make sure the nitrates don't go out there. Not about mansions, but about the cluster homes. Again, it brings back up. Helmut Circle having 4 homes on one buildable lot is equivalent to a mansion. And that amount of persons in one area bordering conservation in Little Pond is not great for the environment, it's not great for traffic and the people in that area. And this has already been approved by the planning board recently. And then something similar happened down in Woods Hole just recently. Haven't read up on that too much, but A mega mansion versus cluster homes, you have to look at them almost the same way and what we can do to zone both of them so that doesn't negatively impact the environment, traffic, neighborhoods, et cetera.
We're going to move to closing statements now, and Paul, we start with you this time. You have up to 2 minutes.
I didn't know I had a closing statement.
There's no opening, but you have closing.
I've been on the planning board for 7 years. I've enjoyed working with the people on the planning board, particularly with the new town planner and the recently appointed assistant town planner. I think it's a cohesive group. And if you look at the group itself, I think we represent the geography of the town, from West Falmouth to East Falmouth, from Woods Hole to Falmouth Village. And then if you look at the expertise on that board, we have people who are in real estate, in business, in engineering, and contractors. So we have a broad variety of expertise that I think comes to play when we discuss these issues. So I do enjoy the camaraderie. I think it's a respectful group, and I think we're getting an awful lot done for the town. Thank you.
First and foremost, I have a rec meeting I'm going to be late for, so I might be leaving here in a minute. Sorry to the Selectman candidates, but I wanted to thank Mindy, the League of Women Voters, and FCTV for hosting this event, and everyone here and watching at home. I'd like to thank both of these people, because if I am elected, I'm going to be working with one of them. So I hope that I wasn't too hard on them tonight. The biggest thing, and I hope you vote for me, I hope I'm elected, but even if I'm not elected, I'm going to continue to fight for the families, for the neighborhoods in this community, for the kids, like I've been doing for, years here. I grew up here, I'm raising my kids here, my parents are here. This is my home, and I echo Melissa's statement about bleeding maroon. The one thing I do want to say, and I want to thank everyone who is running this year for the first time for town meeting or other town offices. The past year or so, there's been a lot of issues that happen in our town, near our schools, near our churches, in East Falmouth, by Morse Pond School. And it wasn't just me doing stuff. There's a large group of people in this town who did a lot of work. But I will say something. The people that did not do anything to fix the zoning for our kids was the current planning board. And I want to close with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat.
First of all, I want to underscore everything that Paul said. He's right on target. 18 years ago, as I said, I wanted to see the zoning bylaws reworked, and we are finally doing that. I'm one of 2 planning board members on the recodification working group. I want to see that through to its completion. We hope to bring that to town meeting fall, maybe, I hope. We're currently reorganizing the zoning bylaws, and we hope to have the public meetings, but I really want to be part of that. The other thing is that the planning board, with the aid of the Cape Cod Commission, is working on a vision for future redesign of the Falmouth Plaza and the surrounding area. The vision started to have legs during discussions of the Local Comprehensive Plan Committee. You see how I keep going back to this local comprehensive plan? It's working. As the vision expanded in concept, it became apparent that we were using the precepts captured in form-based code. This is what we're looking at now. I want to be part of that continuing vision of the plaza and the T-Ticket Highway area. If we don't have this vision map, we're not going to get there, whatever there is. The local comprehensive plan, as I mentioned, has to be reworked after, most likely will have to be reworked after the Cape Cod Commission's new directives come through. I am chairman of the Local Comprehensive Plan Committee and would like to see the revision through to its completion. And I would say that the success of the town, just like the planning board, is based on teamwork. Whatever I can do as an individual, I want to foster that teamwork amongst all the volunteer committees in town.
Thank you. Thank you to our candidates. Thank you. We're moving to the selectman candidates. Hopefully my voice will hold out. No, we're time-wise. It was if there was time. They wrote them, so we go through the written ones first, and then if there's time. Okay, we have Selectman candidates up next. Megan English Braga, Doug Brown, and Mark Finneran. And we'll get right started with the questions so we can get as many in as possible. Megan, we'll start with you. What makes you the best candidate for the job?
Just really, diving right in. Mindy and I are both around toddlers, so I think I have the same thing Mindy does, so I apologize if I'm coughing and sneezing. I'm not trying to interrupt my other two individuals up here. I think what makes me the best candidate, I guess, a couple of things. So, and I really don't like the way that that's phrased, because the Board of Selectmen really is a collaborative board. It's structured to be that way. It's different from a town having a mayor, because it's really meant to be a situation where you have 5 individuals who have, 5 different circles of sort of expertise, connection in the community, their own professional and life experiences, and 5 of those people sit together. And if it's working well, which I think it does, they really share with each other, they feed off of each other, they balance out each other's strengths, and some of the weaknesses that someone might bring to the board. So I think what makes me suited for that is I really enjoy that process, that collaborative process. The Board of Selectmen is not structured for sort of one individual to really be the person that's kind of taking all the air in the room. It's meant for us to all work together. We don't always agree, but there's a level of respect and professionalism. Once the board takes the vote, that's the vote of the board. And I can say for this group that's currently serving, everyone comes prepared, everyone's done their homework, and you have to be someone who wants to engage in that collaborative process, because that's the only way it's effective. Otherwise, we have what we sort of have at the national level, which is just gridlock, and nothing gets done. And I think this board gets a lot done because people want to work together. They want to understand the perspectives of other board members, members in the community. And I think I really bring that openness. I want to hear from people. I recognize there's no possibility for me to know everything about every topic. And so I enjoy that collaborative process.
Thank you. Doug?
Well, I grew up here in Falmouth. I've been a kid growing up on Great Bay, playing and swimming and fishing, and I'd like to see those rivers restored. I've been a building contractor since 1985 in Falmouth, and I think I know the town pretty well. I've been on a lot of different committees and groups. I was a founding member of the East Falmouth Village Association. I'm still on that board today. I served on the Housing Trust. I served on the Falmouth Building Committee, the Town Building Committee when we did this building, as well as the Marina Band Shell. I served on the Planning Board, and now I'm finally on the Board of Selectmen. I enjoy the work. I think we do a good job working together, and I'd like to continue.
Thank you, Mark.
First off, is this a version of this first question that you gave us?
No, that's the second question.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I belong on the Board of Selectmen because I've worked hard for close to 20 years. I've represented the people in this town in many different ways. I've attended more Board of Selectmen's meetings than any of the current Board of Selectmen by far. I've passed, well, just on Monday night, this past Monday night at town meeting, I passed more articles, one, than any of the Board of Selectmen, members of the Board of Selectmen have in total. I think I've proven that I care about this town and that I can work very hard, and I've certainly proven that I do my homework, and I think that the next logical step is to be there, for me to be there representing the people who vote for me and the people of this town.
Doug, we start with you this time. What changes would you propose to maximize the effectiveness and efficiency of the Board of Selectmen?
Well, one change I wouldn't make is changing the current board. I think we are very effective, and we work well together. One thing that you can't just say one thing that's going to make us more effective. You have to continuously be working at it. We in the past we've delegated authority for like dog hearings, and the dog officer and the police work together. That maximizes our time. We've also got a special events committee now where we don't have to supervise every single little bit of every event. They come to us with recommendations, and we make that final decision more effectively. One more thing that I've recommended recently is to have us stop reviewing the Eversource road crossings. The engineering does that, and they give us a recommendation. We usually go with it anyway, so why do we bother reviewing it. So it's an ongoing thing. You always look for ways to maximize your efficiency and continuously evolve. So it's not a one answer.
Mark?
I'm a member of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee and have been for some time. About a year and a half ago, we had an article that we placed in town meeting, and it received an indefinite postponement from the Board of Selectmen. At our next meeting, before town meeting, they sent 2 members of the Board of Selectmen to meet with us, the 2 that are here this evening. We as a group expressed our frustration that the article that I put forward in town meeting and passed in 2012 for a solid waste manager had not been fulfilled, hired. It was given to Peter McConerty, the deputy director, but he has no time and has basically done nothing. We asked why there was so much gridlock, if you prefer, how all our efforts go unnoticed. And they basically explained to us that it was because the town manager had a very tight management style. And I had to reply that they should perhaps read the charter, because the selectmen work for the voters and the people and the taxpayers of this town, and the town manager works for the selectmen. And I've been going there a long time, and what I kind of see now is the opposite. Flash forward to last July, August, September, and November. The town manager and the Board of Health met behind our backs, basically, without properly noticing, to expedite a needle exchange in this town, without noticing or involving the people of this town who obviously have an interest in that subject. When asked in December, when it finally came out, the selectmen said that they weren't aware that this was going on. Well, the people that I speak to and the people that will vote for me would prefer their selectmen to be pulling the cart rather than riding in it. And again, the town manager works for the selectmen, not the other way around. And I can work with anyone. I've demonstrated that. But I will not work for the town manager. I'll work for the people of this town.
Thank you. Megan?
So I think a couple of things. First, let me just say, and I don't want to get into a back and forth, but Peter McConerty is a really hard working individual for the town of Falmouth. He will go to meetings that he is invited to, even though they're not directly in his purview. He does a lot for the DPW. He is, I think, very well respected within the DPW, and he's somebody who has worked very closely with Solid Waste Advisory. I'm the liaison to that committee. So I just want to point out that I think he does an excellent job. I think there can be fair criticisms of whether or not all of those duties that are delegated to him should be appropriately delegated to him, but any shortcoming is not the fault of Peter McConerty. He does a lot of work for the town. So that being said, to the question at hand, I think there are some agenda items that can be shifted. I agree with Doug. There are some things like renewals of licenses, things like that we might be able to kind of deal with in a different way so they don't take up enormous portions of our agenda. One other piece, I think, is I'd really like to see folks who are volunteering for committees, for those to be further up in the agenda so people aren't there until we're there at 11 o'clock at night. They want to donate their time to the town. Let's make that a little bit easier. I think that there are things we're already doing that help with efficiency. So one of the things that this board has done is to call a lot of joint meetings with town boards and committees and organizations to try and really, brainstorm and problem solve so that we don't all in our silos create what we think are solutions that run into each other or overlap in ways that aren't constructive. So that type of collaborative work with other agencies, with departments, with town organizations, I think is really key. And we just had one where we talked about affordable housing at our last meeting, and some actually very practical things came out of that meeting. Some process suggestions from developers, from individuals who work on affordable housing. So those type of things are happening and I think are useful.
Mark, we start with you this time.
I'd just like to make one correction.
Real quick.
That was by no means a criticism of Peter McConerty. I work well with him, have a great relationship. But if anybody can remember back 3 weeks ago when the Johnsons came looking for some help to get the last leg of the bike path to Bourne, Peter McConerty stressed to them that he will have absolutely no time in the next 5 years because he is so busy. It was not a criticism. They just not have time for us. We need a solid waste manager like every town in Massachusetts has.
All right, now we're going to start with you, Mark, on the next question. There is ample evidence of the dangers of plastic pollution. We are a coastal community. What specific actions can Falmouth Selectmen take to address this problem?
Well, first, plastic, being on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, plastics are the most valuable item in the recycling stream. It makes it worthwhile, especially with the green wall, if you prefer, but it has just as much to do with the drop in total manufacturing in China. And also, I must say, I understand it's an issue, but 95% of all the plastics in the ocean come from China, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and one river in Africa. We actually do a fairly good job of keeping the plastics out of our oceans. We are by no means we're not a contributor at all. So it really has to be left to the Asian countries.
Thank you. Megan?
So one of the things that we can do is we can improve, and we're working on improving the recycling in the town. There's some work that's going to happen. Solid Waste Advisory and Mark and Linda and all the folks on solid waste are working to try and put together, to get some funding to put together some enforcement, to really do a little bit of education around recycling and improving our recycling rates. You know, Linda Davis says it every time about plastic bags, and yet it's amazing. You'd think after hearing it at town meeting, don't put your recyclables in plastic bags. It's one of the #1 violations that, you know, we have in this town. So there's a lot of education around it. I think people, you know, a vast majority of individuals understand the importance of it, and we need to make it a little bit easier. There are some things we can do, we've talked about it, which are, you know, providing the larger containers for recycling. The blue containers that the town had many years ago, you know, they just don't really cut it. You know, if we're doing recycling every other week, you're maxed out after, I don't know, we are in our house, maybe we're just, you know, maybe we just are pigs. I don't know what our problem is, but, you know, everything is in plastic. So even if you're trying to buy and be smart and conscientious and you're recycling, we have to make it easier for folks in town, because if that basket is full and, you know, you have a million other things going on, the human nature is you add some extra stuff to your trash that really should be in the recycling stream. So there's stuff that the town can do to make recycling easier. There's education pieces. I'm going to run out of time, but the other component of this is real education around our beaches, because a lot of folks who come to visit for the day, and I'm not critiquing them, but the trash stays on the beach or it goes up to the parking lot where it's already full. And it, you know, blows around, and DPW works hard on that, and beaches try to deal with it, but we have to be better about providing ample places and making it easy. If you make a habit easy, people are going to engage in it. They don't want to go to the beach and have trash on the beach, so or in their town. So we just need to make it simpler.
Doug?
One thing I'd like to see us do is to have the dump open on Sunday and Monday, because a lot of people come to town for the weekend, and when it's time to go home, they don't want to leave the trash in the house because it's going to be stinky when they get back. They don't want to leave it out in the yard because the raccoons are going to get into it when they're gone for a week. So having the dump open on Sunday and Monday, I think, is pretty important, especially early on Monday morning, so people can, everyone works around their property in the weekend. So another thing, I think we should ban nips in Falmouth. I'm just so sick of them. I mean, we've talked about putting a deposit on them, but it's very problematic when we give it some more thought, and it's going to create a whole nother thing for people to do in these recycling centers, so it's probably going to just make a problem. So I think banning is the answer for that. When you look at our responsibility for plastic pollution in the ocean, just because we recycle responsibly and send it to China or the Philippines or some other country that's going to accept it, doesn't mean it's going to be dealt with responsibly when it gets there. I think that we need a nationwide program of recycling at home instead of relying on other countries, because you know, they're not really bound to do anything particular with that trash. And I think I read a story recently that 70% of the stuff that's in the ocean is coming out of 10 rivers, and they're mostly in these countries that are accepting recycling. So I'm not sure what's happening over there, but I think we should take responsibility for ourselves.
Thank you, Megan. We start with you this time. The opioid epidemic is killing people in Falmouth. What actions can selectmen take to address this issue?
Who's that?
Yeah, for me. So, you know, this is, you know, I'm a an attorney, and one of my areas of practice is criminal defense work, so I'm in the court all the time, in Falmouth District Court, other district courts, and, you know, probably 70 to 80% of what comes in the door at the district court is related to substance abuse, primarily, a significant amount alcohol, but primarily now these days, opioids. And so, you know, we hear about it all the time. I know there's a little bit of fatigue around it, but there isn't fatigue if you're an individual or a family that's dealing with it, and there isn't fatigue, you know, if you're in the courts and there's nowhere else for, you know, folks to be dealt with but through that system for individuals who, you know, are just cycling back into the court system and really struggling. This board is trying to do something about it. We're having a forum on June 11th where, you know, we really are asking our elected representatives, because so much of the legislation that can address this issue is beyond the purview of the Board of Selectmen. It's at the state level, some of it's at the federal level, around some of the concerns people have had around sober homes, and the fact that they're not necessarily, you know, there are other issues with them that have community concern connected to it, but one of the other pieces is that, you know, many of them, because they're not certified, they're not serving the individuals that go to live there. It's really an opportunity for vulnerable individuals to be taken advantage of, to not succeed, and to then present other community challenges for us. So we've asked our state reps, our state senator, some members from department agencies for the state to come in to talk about the issue of sober homes, to talk about the fact that, you know, we are a magnet because we have Gosnold, so folks come here, they go into treatment, they try to go to a step down at a sober home, they relapse, and they're here in our community. So we are very uniquely situated. We are not like many other communities that are dealing with the opioid crisis. We have a different thing going on in Falmouth, and we are trying to address this. This board is working on it. We have been. It's one of our strategic goals in our strategic plan.
Well, we're going to have to do everything that we can. We're going to have several ways to deal with it. I've been inquiring and trying to figure out some angle to try to deal with it, and I've been getting constantly reminded that it's not our purview, and there's privacy issues with Americans with Disabilities Act, and there's many barriers to us actually getting involved. So we came up with this forum idea to both educate ourselves and to start to interact with these groups, and hopefully the facilities that are in town will come and attend the meeting and answer some questions. You know, we have to support these people and make it viable for them to get clean and sober, because if we make sure that we're providing a good, safe environment for them and they get clean and sober, it's going to make the environment for the rest of us better too. So we can't just turn our heads and be angry and say go away, because we've got one facility that's been here for, what, 34 years. They're not going away. We may have another one come to town. We better start planning for it and making the adjustments, and if we can't stop it, we better figure out how to make it done right.
Thank you, Mark.
First off, obviously, it's a huge issue. As of today, there have been 5 overdose deaths in this town. And this day last year, it was 2, so we've more than doubled it. But the reality is that we're importing these people into this town through Gosnold. Most of the people that have this problem aren't from here. As the AIDS support group explained to us, we have 32,000. Brockton has 96,000. They're 3 times as large. Yet we only had 3 fewer overdoses than Brockton last year. And why? Because we're importing the people from Brockton here. The footprint of this problem is so large in Falmouth, we don't even know. The number of sober houses, we don't know. Much like Teddy Roosevelt said in the beginning of this century, when we stopped immigration from the 1920s till the 1960s, I don't want this country to become a polyglot boarding house, was what Roosevelt said. And I think much the same thing needs to be done here. We have to pull out the welcome mat. We have to discourage any more expansion of this. We already are doing much more than our share. Other towns have to put a shoulder to the wheel. We need to at least try to put a moratorium on this till we can get a grasp on what is going on. But I say to you, 85% of the people that are living in these sober houses that are going to Gosnold are not citizens of Falmouth or even Cape Cod. And this is a huge problem. It's a big state, and it's got to be spread around. I don't think that, in good conscience, we can really bring any more people here. We can really expand our treatment footprint. It's just not possible.
Just very briefly, I just wanted to say that, I don't disagree that I said in my statement that we are a bit of a magnet because of Gosnold, but it is not accurate to say most of our overdoses that we have had, I've had 12 of my own clients, they are from this community. And the last several people that have passed in the last couple of months are children and brothers and sisters of people who live in our community. So it does a huge disservice, and it is inaccurate and doesn't help us wrap our arms around the problem to believe that these other people are not part of this community. Yes, there are other people who come here to Gosnold for treatment and who don't have deep ties to Falmouth. Many of the people that I have as clients, are almost entirely individuals who live here. Their family members are in this room, they're in this town, and so it's we don't need to have an argument about it, but we have to recognize it in order to have an actual solution that would be effective. So
We're going to move on to audience questions now. I've got quite a few. I'll try to get to as many as we can in our time frame. Doug, we start with you. If Falmouth's adoption of the Stretch Energy Code is put on the town meeting warrant, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, would you be in favor of it? Why or why not?
Well, I'd be in favor of it because there's benefits for us in the town. As a contractor, I know that we're almost doing what's required in the stretch code now anyway. I tried to advocate it for, not this past town meeting, but the one before, unsuccessfully, because when local builders come to town meeting and speak against something, they usually get the support of town meeting. If it's going to create more work for them, town meeting is very receptive to those kind of concerns. So it's not an easy one to push. You have to get people on board, and if we go to try to go for it again, I'm going to do more outreach with those local builders and try to see if they can get on board with it.
Mark?
We have a serious problem with affordable housing. One, affording it. In the last town meeting, this was voted down mostly on the word of experienced builders who said that the cost benefit wasn't favorable to this. We're very close to the stretch code now. Houses that are built are so efficient without the stretch code that they need to take outside air in just to make the air safe and breathable. I really don't know which way I'd come down on this, but I certainly was convinced by the large number of builders in this town who spoke against this code. And again, we have a serious affordable housing problem. And to add $20,000 onto the price of a house that is already incredibly efficient with the building codes that we have, really have to think long and hard about that one. I mean, town meeting didn't pass it last time. It wouldn't be the Board of Selectmen anyway. They would only be recommending indefinite postponement or support. Where the rubber hits the road is town meeting. And so in that respect, the question's almost improper.
Megan?
So, I think there are a lot of benefits to it. When we first started having this conversation as a town, it was really far apart between what the stretch code was and what builders were doing in a practical sense. As both Mark and Doug have noted, that difference has really narrowed. And the thing is, if we're able to adopt the stretch code, it's one of the pieces to become a green community, and that can open up some funding. And so if we're already almost there and it can open up some funding, I'm in support of it. I understand, and I'm not a builder, so there's education that I want to get in here, and we did hear at the last town meeting when this was brought up. There were some concerns from builders, but I think, we're almost there, and it can be a real benefit financially to the town. The issue around affordable housing, you know, some of these things are not gonna, we had a great presentation on it before that vote. The price differences are really somewhat negligible when you look at, you know, what's really being done in the houses when you're building them, what's really required. So I am for it. Again, I think there's a lot of community education that has to happen, but any time when the town can open up some sources of revenue without, you know, drastically engaging in, you know, really different behavior or behavior that's very expensive or detrimental to business, I'm for looking at that. I mean, any source of revenue that can come into our community to help us with some of the challenges, some of the ones that we've heard about tonight, I'm certainly in support of. And the Greens Communities Act, that's really one of our last components.
Right.
So that we can actually be qualified for it. So we're really close to it, and it has some value, and a lot of other communities have done it in the Commonwealth, and so it's not as if all of their building has stopped. So I think, you know, it's very workable, and I think we just need some more education to get the public on board at town. Mark is correct, it's a town meeting vote. They haven't gotten there yet, but I certainly would do whatever I could do to support it, and we did last time as a board.
Mark, we start with you this time. Do you support reauthorizing the Community Preservation Act in 2020? Please give your reasons for your position.
We as a community have really negatively affected our stock of affordable housing, kind of unwittingly, by purchasing up a large portion of the open space in this town, the cheaper land, which would normally go to cheaper, more affordable housing. This town is well over 50% open space. There's a state website that monitors it. The first time I saw it, it was 44%. And then somebody told me I was wrong, so I found the website again, and it had gone up to 56%. I think somewhere in the middle should be the answer to that. The 3% that we take from your taxes, I think we should find a happy medium, actually, and reduce it somewhat. But to continue to buy open space at the detriment of affordable housing, I think it's something that we should really look long and hard at as a community, because you can see it every day when you go over the Bourne Bridge. The people that have to come from elsewhere to do our work, to take care of our seniors, to fill our stores and our retail and every other job in town. There just is not a place for them to live, because between the conservation restrictions and the amount of land purchased by the Community Preservation Committee, there's almost nothing left. I think we should look long and hard at it. And I think, as I said, some kind of a reduction. I mean, to continue to buy up all the open land in this town, what's left of it, doesn't bode well for the future.
Thank you, Mark. Megan?
So, you know, the CPC funds don't need to, we've used them for a number of things. They're not just for buying open space. You know, one of the things that they can be for is for affordable housing. So I think that those funds have provided an enormous benefit to the town. Yes, they've provided monies for open space, which are important and have a value, and they've provided open space in sort of across our town. There's large parcels in East Falmouth, you know, sort of spread out around the community where you have that green, that open space. It's also provided funding for recreation. It's also provided for some funding for some housing. And what I would like to see, absolutely to reauthorize it, because I think it's, you know, once we pay off that, once we bank and get the land debt, land bank debt, a lot of those funds are going to be freed up for us to use. And one of the things we can invest them in is affordable housing. And it's absolutely accurate that is, you know, we haven't tackled that. I think we haven't tackled it because we haven't embraced it as a community for something we really want to solve. Everybody wants to complain about affordable housing, and when affordable housing is built next to you, then everybody complains that somehow that's going to ruin the character of their neighborhood. So we have to do some education, and by we, I mean the Board of Selectmen. We need to do education around affordable housing, understanding the need, and the way that helps us create a vibrant and continue to have a vibrant community. And the funds from CPC can go towards affordable housing along with other things. It's an enormous benefit to our community to have those funds available. You can just look at the end of the warrant every year and look at what those funds go to, and they look like enormous amounts of money. And guess what? It's sort of taken off the top from everyone, and so it's a little bit less of a pinch for each of us, and the bang for the buck is enormous for the projects we're able to fund for that benefit people of all ages, all economic, socioeconomic strata in our community. And I think that last hurdle, we have lots of hurdles, but one of the last ones is around affordable housing, and that's exactly what some of those funds can be designated for.
Thank you. Doug?
I would definitely want to support the Community Preservation Act. I want to keep that going. All the money that we've recently been supplementing these affordable housing projects has come from that. We built a fund out of that, and it's helped to fund $65,000 per unit, which is a lot to fund, but that's what it takes to make affordable housing these days. And if you look at all the historic renovation that we've done with it, look around at some of the churches that have benefited from it, and that was controversial at first, but we've gotten used to the idea that historic churches are important in our town. And I'm happy we have the open space that we have. I think we're very lucky to have so many great places to go take a walk. We'll have enough land to find and build affordable housing, and we're going to figure it out in the next couple of years because that's become our new focus. So I think we can do it.
Megan, how can we bring the community together to address the needs of people in our community struggling with unfortunate conditions such as homelessness and addictions?
Okay. So, I'll sort of harken back to what I talked about earlier. So that's part of what this board is trying to do, and that's part of the forum on the 11th. We have worked very hard with the police department, with fire and rescue. We work with agencies with human services in our town, the Falmouth Substance Abuse Commission, to really think about ways to address some of these entrenched issues. The schools see it on the front line because children, who are in families where they're struggling with addiction, children who are struggling, and parts of families that, and they are part of families that are homeless. We have all of that in our community. But we also have a tremendous wealth of resources between both town agencies, community organizations. The service center is really just, always kind of blazing a path of, providing resources and support to people in our community. But I go back to, sort of the similar argument around affordable housing. We have to acknowledge that the community we live in has great disparity in wealth and in income and in access to care, to childcare, to health care. We have beautiful beaches, we have beautiful homes, and we have folks who are living, paycheck to paycheck, or who are asking the service center to help bridge the gap, or asking HAC to help bridge the gap for their rent each month. So first and foremost, we have to acknowledge that those folks are part of our community. We have to embrace those individuals, not demonize them, not blame them, and problem solve. There are lots of ways to solve those problems. It requires, a completely holistic approach. You cannot do one thing to solve homelessness. You cannot do one thing to solve addiction. You cannot do one thing to solve, some of the cycles of poverty that go on. It requires a multi-faceted approach. We have the resources here, but again, it takes a commitment of a community to acknowledge that that's what we want to do and that that's a priority. And to some of the conversation that the town has had as a community hasn't been that productive.
So we're going to have to embrace it. We're going to have to pay more attention to it. The new drug court was presented to us a couple weeks ago. It's very encouraging, the accountability that this new judge is going to require from these people that run into trouble. He's going to be testing them and checking up on them, and they have to check in with their probation officer every day. That's a great start, and that's a great lead for us to pay attention to. That's what it takes, is you have to engage these people. When a person overdoses, the Falmouth Police will send an officer and somebody from Human Services, and they'll go and check on that person maybe the next day or the day after when they're fresh from that overdose. This engagement has helped a lot because, if you just put them out the door and just say, go away, they're not going to get better. You have to get involved, and you have to take an interest, and you have to provide the environment where they can get better. So I think if we get focused on it, every time this town has a problem and we get focused, we can fix it. You can't just fix this, but you can pay attention to it.
Mark?
Can you just repeat that question again?
Sure. How can we bring the community together to address the needs of people in our community struggling with unfortunate conditions such as homelessness and addictions?
Well, homelessness is It's caused by the lack of a home. We're not building enough homes and apartments to house these people. And as I said, we're buying up all the open space. I think it would be wiser if this town were to buy the open space whenever it became available, turn around and lease it to a developer for 99 years for $1, whatever size this parcel is, and let the market take care of the rest. It's worked before. The price of land is a huge consideration in the price of a home. I think we need to come up with new ideas, and again, buying up all the empty open space doesn't help. As far as drug addiction, it's an obvious problem. It's nationwide. And I'm by no means against anyone getting help and against addiction treatment. But we're overloaded. Some of you people should go home and search Prescott, Arizona. They decided to go down the road that it appears that this town is going down, and to be opioid rehab destination city, and their city is being crushed. Speak to any of our fire or police. I can give you a personal experience. A few years ago, I was at the quarterdeck with some friends of mine in the afternoon, and I noticed a gentleman acting rather peculiar. I was across the room, so I got closer to him, and I paid closer attention to him. And he seemed to be weak on his feet or whatever, so I went up to him, and I tried to speak to him. He couldn't speak. And soon thereafter, he started to fall over. So I grabbed him, and I called the bartender to grab a chair. We called the ambulance. I called the ambulance. We sat around and waited for over 20 minutes. The ambulance had to come finish a run, come from North Falmouth to the quarterdeck, because the ambulances that we had were all dealing with overdoses. This man died the next day. He had a stroke. I'm not sure that it would have made any difference. If it was a heart attack, it certainly would have. But we have...
I'm sorry to get to all the questions. We're a little over on our time, but I'm sure they'd be happy after, if you want to come up to the candidates and ask your question, I'm sure they would be happy to tell you their position. So we're going to start with closing comments, and Doug, it is your turn to go first.
Okay, well, looking back at my notes from 3 years ago, the things that I had for issues that were important to me, number one was coastal resiliency. I thought nobody was really paying attention to that here in town, and as soon as I got elected, I asked if we can create a coastal resiliency committee, which we have. They're working hard. They're maybe not going as fast as I would have hoped, but they're moving in the right direction. I wanted to see if we could do anything with the beaches. I haven't been very successful with that yet. That's going to be the next phase of implementing the Coastal Resiliency Action Committee with their suggestions. They're waiting on their vulnerability assessment right now. But I'd like to see if we can come up with some practical ways to find some short-term fixes for the beach. We got Minot Beach that's going away at 4 feet a year, and we've got a pile of dirt in the parking lot that we can't seem to be putting on the beach. We've got 8,000 cubic yards of sand sitting at the leaf dump. So there's a lot of work to be done, and so my work is not finished on that aspect of it, but we are moving in the right direction ever so slowly. I would like to see the former senior center turn into a veteran center. We have a lot of veterans here in Falmouth, and they're an important part of our community. And we have disabled American veterans, we have the VFW, we have the Falmouth Military Support Group. They could all have a center there, and I think it would be really good for our town. That's something I'd like to work on. Let's see, the wind turbines, that was a problem a few years ago. I was hoping we'd get that resolved. We've at least resolved the future of the wind turbines. They're not going to be spinning in Falmouth. I hope we can find a place for them. So far, it seems to be problematic. Most of the things that were the targets for my election last year are in the works or being worked on. So my next thing is going to be affordable housing. That's the biggest issue for us. We're going to have to really come up with some creative ways to make it happen. Density is going to be the answer. We're going to have to get used to the idea of more density. I know Mr. Halen spoke earlier about not liking it, but it's going to happen. Thank you.
Mark?
I think that I am a natural for the Board of Selectmen. As I said, I've been attending these meetings for almost 20 years. I have gained a lot of knowledge. I've passed many articles in town meeting. I've presented more. I take the position where my endeavor is to represent the actual people of this town. Many of them feel that that is not what they're getting currently. Again, I'll go back to the ill-conceived notion of a drug rehab next to the school. The Board of the Selectmen were almost silent. They really gave no voice, didn't lift a finger to help, and the good people of this town came out in numbers and put a stop to that. That shouldn't have been necessary. The meetings, again, that I mentioned with the Board of Health, not noticed properly. It's my open meeting law complaint still languishes in the at the state level, and it's been over 4 months. I've had many open meeting law complaints in this town, and never had to wait more than 6 weeks after the 4-week initial window. Again, there was no representation of the people. They had to come out on their own and put a stop to that needle exchange across from the church. They wouldn't have to worry about that if I was there. And again, if you read the charter, the town manager works for the selectmen. The selectmen work for the voter. That doesn't seem to be what we have, and I'll use it again. I'd rather be the guy pushing the cart or pulling the cart rather than sitting in it. And I think I can serve just a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan?
Thank you. So the Board of Selectmen isn't all-powerful. We have limits, as we should. There are other agencies, both within our town, departments and boards, as well as state and federal agencies that have jurisdiction over certain issues. So whatever people do with their vote on May 21st, I hope that folks recognize that some of the things that we've heard sort of over the course of this election cycle, the Board of Selectmen doesn't have a magic wand. We can't change what case law is in this state that requires and allows needle exchange programs, if that's what you want to call them, to go where they are. There's case law that just took place, from the town of Barnstable. So this board addresses the things that are appropriate for us to address. We are proactive in the way that it is appropriate for us to be proactive. We don't drive over other boards' jurisdiction. We don't promise things that we can't do. We are very realistic, and we're focused on solving problems, setting policy, trying to make this community the kind of place that I grew up in. I'm from here. My family has lived here for many generations. As a selectman, I stand sort of on the shoulders of two of my great-grandfathers who sat in these positions, one for over 20 years. So public service runs in my family. It's very important to me. This isn't an easy thing to do when you have two kids. When I did this last time, my daughter was 6 months old. She's 3.5 now. My son was 12. He's a freshman, and hopefully he'll live, to be a senior through his teenage years. If I'm elected, that's what will be happening in the next 3 years. But I do this because I love it. I do this because I really care, because I believe that, it's part of, being part of a community is what makes, you don't just live somewhere, you're part of the community. It's what makes it worthwhile. It's what makes it different to be here in this town. So I would really appreciate your support to continue that work.
Megan English Praga, Doug Brown, and Mark Finneran. Thank you. Thank you, and thank all of you for being here and providing questions. And again, I'm sorry we didn't get to all of the questions. Thank you.
Thank you.